There's a bit more fucking paperwork to go through before we can kick this off proper.
Any popped eyes? Any bitten eyes?
No, this one is boring. So, what we're seeing in the Great American Bash 1992 is a tournament for the NWA tag team titles.
Right, okay.
Well, why, Pete, is my big
Why do we
question.
need it?
Why are we suddenly with the NWA tag team titles? Very, very simple. If you mean by simple, will it take an hour? Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
Simple but long.
So in 1948, they start the NWA, which is a coalition of promoters who have a sort of virtual monopoly on wrestling. The idea is they want one set of world champions, both single and tag, so that, you know, there is a sort of uniformity, and those will be shared among the promoters. They will be given dates on them. And so the tag team championship comes out of that. Now, from 1948 to 1982, the NWA allowed their member promotions to have their own versions of the tag team belts. By the time you get to 1957, there's about 13 of these different belts.
Yeah.
As time goes on, they start to dwindle. And by the time that you get to the 80s, where all of the smaller promotions are going under, you've only got really a couple left. One is the WWF version, and when they leave the NWA, they become just their own WWF tag team titles. And you have the other ones, which are owned by Jim Crockett Promotions.
Right.
So they are the NWA World Tag Team Champions. Now, when in 1988 he sells to Ted Turner, his company, in 1991, they officially split from the NWA. But they've got the NWA belts, which are renamed the WCW Championships. The first people to effectively hold the WCW tag team titles once they're renamed are Doom, Ron Simmons, and Butch Reed. The problem is the NWA still exists.
Right.
So in 1992, they turn up and they say, we'd like to have a tournament so that we can revive the NWA tag team titles. And they do the same with the NWA world title. And WCW agree with this. I've absolutely no idea why. It's so fucking complex. Bill Watts at the time said, I wanted to bring back the NWA world title and the NWA world tag team titles because that NWA name had been established for years in fans' minds as the most legitimate championship ever in wrestling.
Right.
It was also true in terms of international recognition. Having the NWA titles made our athletes much more valuable to the Japanese offices, and New Japan was just what a lot of our guys needed. I don't care how talented a guy is, there are times when you've just got to get him out of your area for a while or he becomes stale.
Right.
When you have the same stars for years and years, eventually you run through everything you can do with them and people get tired of them. I like chocolate cake, but I don't want it every day of every week of every year. Once you go through every conceivable matchup with a guy, soon you've got the fans saying, I'm going to barf if I have to watch that guy one more time.
He's confused his similes there. He's confused his metaphors.
But what was I going to do with a guy who was stale? So basically, Bill Watts is saying, remember the NWA belt, that was big when I was a lad.
Yeah.
Let's bring that back. And so what they have is the NWA board of directors begin to say, well, we'll decide who wins it. We'll be in charge of that. And they decide they really want to press the whole idea of it being a world tag team title. So at the Clash of the Champions 19, which is the event that takes place just before the Great American Bash, they have the opening rounds and they bring in teams from all around the world. Silver King and El Texano come from Mexico. You get Japan's Hiroshi Hase and Akira Nagami, and representing Europe, Joe and Dean Malenko, who are not European. They were just American. But they were quite small and they dressed well, and they were a bit like, that is very
Malenko
Euro.
probably sounds a little bit Russian.
They could also wrestle, was the thing. The sons of the great Boris Malenko. And Dean Malenko, of course, will go on to have a big WCW and WWE career. But he was a very good technical wrestler, and that was seen as being very European.
Right.
Small can wrestle, European.
Yeah.
Big can sell tickets, American. And so they have the first round of this tournament at the Clash of the Champions 19. But there's a huge, stupid booking error that is made here. So the NWA the tag team title tournament starts, and the favourites are going to be Steve Williams and Terry Gordy. And what they do is, for some reason, between the first round and the Great American Bash, they have Williams and Gordy win the WCW tag team titles from the Steiners. That means that by the time we get to the end of the tournament, they've united the titles again. So it's such a... Why you bother pulling them apart to then end up with them going back together? It is absolute madness. In a predetermined sport, they did the one thing that stopped it being clean and making sense. Properly stupid. Also, I mean, one of the other confusing things is the NWA had different rules from WCW. So WCW, as we talked last time, Bill Watts had wanted to go back to a 70s sort of very hard-hitting, not flashy version of the sport.
No top rope stuff.
No top rope. You got disqualified if you brawled on the outside, all those sorts of things. Well, because this tag tournament was being conducted under NWA rules, in this event they go, you can do all of those things that you can't normally do.
Right,
so
okay.
you
so
are allowed
really,
to go off the top rope, but only in the matches to do with the NWA tag team title.
You're kidding me.
So Liger, he can go off the top rope in this.
Right.
Sting, he can't. Because he's not in the NWA tag team championship. Now, I would say the thing I love about this is it does make it seem real, because why would you go to like the effort of confusing it this badly?
Yeah.
It does seem like the split between like amateur rules and professional rules. And I actually sort of really like that. I mean, it is a disaster. It's just ridiculous.
Well, they have to start the whole thing with Bill Watts like rocking up, just looking like a suit, explaining the rules. Like it just goes, and then he sort of. He explains it in a really boring way, and then he tries to get the catchphrase, let's hook 'em up, off the ground.
All of those...
Let's hook 'em up.
Let's hook 'em up.
So the bottom line is, right here, let's go hook 'em up. All right, we're going to hook 'em up. All right. All I want to say is let's hook 'em up. All right. Now let's hook 'em up and kick it off. All right. Let's get a referee out here, and let's hook 'em up. Let's hook 'em up right now.
Gretchen, stop trying to make...
Now let's hook 'em up.
...happen. It's not going to happen.
The poster that they have for this is a classic as well. And it's again, Watts is going, I don't want there to be any focus on personalities and characters. And it's just these two airbrush drawn hands across the world. So it looks like sort of Christian bookshop sort of stuff.
It does, yeah.
And it's basically him saying, this is about the purity of wrestling. And it's not about stars and things like that. Now, it is worth saying, the other thing they do at Clash of the Champions is they the big match that everyone wants to see, really, out of this tournament is the Steiner brothers versus Gordy and Williams. At the time, Gordy and Williams are the biggest gaijin team in Japan. They're working for All Japan Pro Wrestling. The Steiners run them a close second, but they're working for New Japan. So for the Japanese as well, this is a dream match with people, essentially it'd be like WWF versus WCW with the two teams having a match, in a foreign country. That is what the situation we've got here. But at Clash of the Champions, they have Williams and Gordy beat the Steiners in the second round of the tournament. And so we go into the tournament, you go, oh yeah, the dream match, that's already happened. That's all gone. So people are like, what is this show? Where are the stars? It does incredibly badly at the live gate. 8,000 fans. It has a 0.4 buy rate, which is pretty much on the floor. That means 0.4% of everyone who has pay-per-view has decided to order it. That is a stinker. Up come the credits as well. They go through the teams. They name them all, apart from they say the team representing Japan, which is, again, it's just not worth trying to say the names this early on. They're so worried about that. But it does feel very sort of like sports. It's very unflashy.
One of those, like, Agawami can't wrestle because he's got an eye injury, and there's a shot with him in a Japanese, like, Tokyo ophthalmologist, like looking into a machine with eye charts, and you're like, jeez, this is just boring.
I mean, you would not see Doink in that ophthalmologist, would you? In a sort of thing. But what they're doing is they're going, this is real sport. We're taking you behind.
Yeah.
And when I watched this as a kid, I was like, this feels like grown-up sport.
Yeah.
This feels like something. It's boring enough that if someone came in and went, oh, what's this shitty wrestling? After a while, they'd go, oh yeah, I'm going to go now. and that to me was the best thing. Good, I can watch it in peace.
Good, yeah.
But what they're not going to do is just go, look at these homos. What are you watching? A clown fighting an accountant? This was serious. No, I'm looking at a man having an eye injury checked at a Japanese ophthalmologist. Thank you very much. It's opened by Tony Schiavone and Magnum TA as well.
Now, Magnum TA, what's this guy's thing? What's he all about?
Magnum TA was named after Magnum PI.
doesn't surprise me, Mark.
He has a moustache.
Yeah, he has a moustache.
He has a moustache.
He's quite good looking. He's got a Citrinian's ponytail. It's very
He does.
enjoyable.
The TA is Magnum PI, Magnum Private Investigator.
Right.
The TA, any?
Army, like an army reservist?
No.
Territorial Army?
Terry Allen. That's his
Allen.
real name.
Magnum Terry Allen.
Yep, you would be Magnum PD.
That would work. Magnum PD works.
He was a really, really big star in the 80s for Jim Crockett Promotions, the NWA.
Right.
He was pretty much pegged to be the next NWA World Heavyweight
He
Championship.
looks like a show jumper, Mark.
He does.
It's like a lovely show jumper.
In 1986, he ploughed his Porsche into a telegraph pole in rain in, I think, North Carolina, where he lived. He wasn't speeding. It was just terrible bad luck.
Right.
He was in the car for 2 hours before somebody called 911. He had exploded 2 vertebrae in his back, and he was totally paralysed down one side. He never, ever wrestled again.
Right.
But in this point, he'd obviously been through enough rehabilitation. You're looking at sort of 6 years on. He was able to do that sort of thing. He was not a natural colour commentator or ring announcer or interviewer. But what he was one of the boys who had a terrible bit of bad luck, and who obviously they were, keeping within the family. He also, the 80s, North Carolina. When they talk about the Japanese, Magnum TA has one line. He goes, "The Japanese are very shrewd people."
It always comes out like that, doesn't it?
Oh, dear, here we go. You can see why the possibly racist Bill Watts still had a soft spot for him. And then we cut to Jim Ross and Jesse Ventura, who are commentating on this. Jesse Ventura is wearing a suit where he looks like he's had paint thrown over him.
Yeah.
He looks like a man who hates gay people and is dressed up as what he thinks a gay person would wear.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah. He's sort of shaved his head, but he's kept like a Japanese sort of ponytail. But he looks a little bit like Stone Cold Steve Austin, weirdly.
He
with
does.
a goatee beard, I
yeah,
suppose.
and what you can see as well, because of the change in the way that, the product is being promoted, Jesse is slightly having to go, I'll take this one more seriously.
Well, yeah, so no matter what... But I would sort of say this is all down to Jim Ross, and actually he hated working with Ross over here. And
I had chemistry with everyone I broadcast with. Tony Schiavone, Gorilla Monsoon, Vince McMahon. It didn't matter. I can broadcast. Well, the only guy I couldn't broadcast with was Jim Ross.
Why's that?
I don't think he liked me.
Really?
Yeah, he wouldn't put over me. He would never work with me. I think he was angry because I was probably making 4 times the money he was, or 10 times. Who knows?
Right.
Jim Ross is the only guy I could never work with on the mic.
And Jim Ross, you can tell he really doesn't want to get involved with the body at all. Like, Jesse is doing zingers in Ross's way, and he's just giving him nothing back. Like, really just cutting him off at the legs. It's once I heard that little interview, I was like, Jesus, he really does not seem to want to work with body at all and do anything, really.
And it's bizarre because he works like with Jerry Lawler.
Yeah.
And how he's happy
about,
to do that. I always imagine that Jim Ross probably didn't like Jesse Ventura because Jesse Ventura was obviously pro-union and very outspoken and political. And I should imagine all of those things, Jim Ross was just like, squeaky damn wheel. Everyone's horrible. But yeah, it's a funny one. You can really see, I think, in this show that Jesse Ventura is thinking, if Bill Watts is going to be here much longer, my days are probably numbered. And I mean, luckily for Jesse, Bill Watts was not there for very much longer. He had a couple of shows and then he is very much out the door.
Yeah, what kind of costume are you going to wear, Ross?
Something very special, maybe in your honor, perhaps.
Yeah,
your honor.
Right.
The 2 semifinal matchups have been decided. In just a moment, we'll see the first one. Dr. Death Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy.
The first match is Brian Pillman and Jushin Thunder Liger versus Nikita Koloff and Ricky Steamboat. 3 men who are absolutely sodded up by the top rope rule that WCW has. Pillman and Liger had been doing really state-of-the-art stuff and immediately hamstrung by Bill Watts coming in and saying, that is not wrestling. I suppose Bill Watts always had the thing of sort of saying, well, the top rope stuff is not believable within context. I mean, look at Jushin Liger. Right? He's like a sort of space man lizard. The idea he's going to come off the top rope is not the weirdest thing about the whole presentation of Jushin Thunder Liger. Whereas, he's very keen on Nikita Koloff. But what there is about Nikita Koloff is there is almost like a Goldberg vibe where he is just this really serious, thumpy, grim, never keen on selling, not going to do the bells and whistles, is just going to look like he's a big scrapper. What you do see in this match is that they are allowed to do their top rope moves here because it's the NWA.
Yeah.
And every time they do a top rope move, the crowd are alive and just going, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
And Bill Watts must have sat there and just thought, I am so angry.
Oh, like there's that, and then
This is making me look wrong.
When Sting turns up and the kids just go, "Why?" You're like, oh, I know which way this is going. Now, he must know. He must see.
He must
the difference in the reception.
There's always that funny thing, isn't there, where I think new bosses come in and they go, well, it will take a bit of time to re-educate. But often when you do that thing of re-educating, what you are doing is alienating and hoping there will be new people to come in and fill the gaps. But the reality is, for Bill Watts, when all the popular stuff is either stuff you've banned or stuff you're getting rid of, there is a part of me that goes, if fucking Van Hammer had come in for a match here, the crowd would have gone, thank God. We've got to the point where not wearing black trunks is like flashy.
Yeah.
Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes come out in red trunks and you're like, oh, that's a bit of jazz. That's exciting. A lot of these matches also, they don't end with like big moves.
No.
We've got to an era where every match ends with a clothesline, a hard clothesline. For the last 9 years, a clothesline is a move that you see 100 times in a match.
Yeah.
Now it's like, that is how matches end. The clothesline.
Devastating.
Oh, man.
And I personally don't like koloff.
Why is that?
I don't care for men that physically abuse women.
Well, neither do I. I'm sure that no one does. But,
Wait a minute, Ross. Don't tell me you don't know what he did to Medusa.
I didn't say that. I said no one adheres to anyone abusing a lady, but maybe she isn't a lady. But be that as it may.
Like Jesse tries to liven things up by mentioning the Predator, and it's the one time he's ever mentioned the Predator without actually saying that he was in the Predator, which is progress for me.
It really is. He says he's talking about Liger's mask.
Looks like the Predator.
Ugly looking mask looks like a predator, and it's just silent afterwards, and you can hear Jesse going, should I say
that I was in the Predator?
Or is Jim going to say, Jesse, I bet you been close up and personal with the Predator, have you? But Jim Ross is just like, ain't going to give it to him. Ain't going to give it to him.
That is one ugly looking mask, Jim Ross. He looks like the Predator.
Liger now, the referee there to check.
Liger, I mean, what you see in this as well is this is a sort of unusual period because you have people adjusting to this new style. So you get people like Liger doing moves that they're sort of going, they won't go with it if I'm going to do something flippy and fun. So he sort of does things like cartwheels into crossbodies that he's clearly sort of going, this would look like it might work in a real fight, and everything's a bit messy and a bit untried. There's a bit with Brian Pillman. He does a great section where he sort of is on the top turnbuckle, and then he doesn't know what to do, and he just sort of jumps onto Koloff's back, and Koloff falls onto his knees.
Because he thinks he's been given a bigger move than he actually was.
They're just like not sure what's going on. And what I loved about it is I'm sort of like, that is what would happen in a wrestling. If wrestling was real, you would be continually like, I grab you and someone just goes, I'm falling over. And
they slip on a tissue.
Yeah. It does have a feel of going, well, this is sort of what it would be like if it really was real. I mean, is it good? No. Does it look sort of real? Is it different? Yeah. I don't mind that at all. Obviously, Liger and Pillman as small, jumpy people have to be immediately, eliminated.
Out of there, yeah.
So, because, I mean, the last thing you want to see is a small underdog team who are spectacular in the ring, almost getting the big prize. You want to see Nikita Koloff, the solid, dull, trudging man. It's worth saying, I mean, again, if you look at the missed opportunities that you could have had if you were still being normal when you were booking all this, I mean, matches between Liger and Steamboat, Steamboat and Pillman, Liger and Pillman again. All of the matches at work, apart from if you put Koloff in the mix. But those matches that are lost because we're doing some weird, hard man, tough guy tournament is just really upsetting and annoying.
Some accused you when working for WCW that you were just phoning it in. What are your thoughts on that?
Phoning what in?
They say that you weren't really, I guess, playing up your best mic skills, and obviously...
Who's they?
Maybe journalists, Dave Meltzer, guys like that.
What the hell does Meltzer know? A little puke.
I'm not saying Dave in particular, so...
Well...